Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Judy Mark. I'm the president of Disability Voices United. We're an organization that is based in California that is directed by people with disabilities and family members. One of our major priorities is we fight for people with disabilities to have choice and control over their lives, which leads us to the subject that we're talking about today. So we're here today to discuss how to fix a very broken conservatorship system that allows abuse and takes away the rights of citizens in this country. This is an issue that is near and dear to our hearts because we've been working on this for years. And we know that this is a moment. This is a big day for people with disabilities. Soon, the United States Senate Judiciary Committee will be taking up the issue of toxic conservatorships. And tomorrow, Britney Spears will have another day in court. She'll be having a hearing that we're all hoping will lead to her exiting from her conservatorship. We often say that people with disabilities who are conserved or have guardians have fewer rights than prisoners. Let me say that again. People under conservatorship have fewer rights than prisoners. The Free Britney movement has given us a moment in time that is allowing us to shine a light on a system that we have been concerned about for many, many years. But it is really important for you not to believe that Britney is this exceptional case. I've been hearing about that a lot in the media, that Britney is different. She is very wealthy. She makes a lot of money. She employs a lot of people, and therefore she's different and she shouldn't have been conserved. But please don't think that she's unusual. Please understand that there are a lot of people, in fact, millions of people in this country whose rights have been taken away, and we're here to say things have to change. I myself have a son who's 24 years old, who's challenged by autism every day. And many people who meet him would think that he should be conserved. But in fact, he's not. He needs help with most of his daily needs. And yet we've made sure that he's retained all of his rights. We believe at Disability Voices United that there is another way. We've put out a handbook for parents of adults with developmental disabilities called With Support and Without the Court, showing that how people with disabilities can be protected without the courts being involved. Remember that when a person is conserved, the court is the conservator. It's not the parents, it's not an individual or a professional. It is the court that is the conservator. The court then appoints someone to manage and even control that person with a disability on its behalf. The court can, and often does, appoint a total stranger as the conservator. In fact, half of people conserved or with a guardian in the United States have a total stranger as their conservator. And even if the court appoints a family member, it doesn't always go well. Sometimes that conservatorship is taken away from the family member because of divorce or because somebody believes that they can't handle being the conservator. Sometimes the family member is not an appropriate conservator and they can be abusive. So the system is really rife with abuse. It is a system that is very opaque. There's very little transparency in how the way it works. But let me be clear, the conservatorship system is all about money. Money made by lawyers, money made by professional fiduciaries, money made by professional conservators. It is all about money. And the system needs sweeping reform, and we are pleased to join with the Free Britney movement to capitalize on this moment in time, and with courageous legislators in California to move this goal forward. So speaking of a courageous legislator, I want to introduce our first speaker, Assemblymember Evan Lowe, who represents the Silicon Valley, Northern California, who's the author of a very important bill called Assembly Bill 1194, which has passed unanimously through the legislature and is sitting on Governor Newsom's desk. Thank you so much for your leadership, Assemblymember, and please take it away.
Well, thank you very much, Judy. Very much honored to join in this conversation about helping individuals in California. And of course, we'd like to thank Disability Voices United, Cedar, and the Free Britney movement for helping coordinate today's event, while also raising awareness about California's conservatorships. I'm also grateful to our counterparts and our Senate colleague, Ben Allen and Senator John Laird, for co-authoring this legislation, Assembly Bill 1194, and happy to see that Congress has also taken up this issue of toxic conservatorships. I'm proud to say that this Assembly bill in California, 1194, had unanimous bipartisan support. And as you know, that's difficult in this day and age, especially in this political climate. But it's now sitting on the governor's desk, and all it needs now is the governor's signature and to help kickstart the significant reforms for California's conservatorships. So what is this bill? This bill will help impact cases as varied as that of a pop star like Britney Spears to middle and low income families in California. And what we're trying to do is simply sort out the affairs and help individuals take care of those in need. And like so many individuals, I was alarmed similarly by what we saw in Britney Spears' case. But this is also about individuals who may not have the type of celebrity. And as a result, our team in the state legislature did our own research, and we saw some significant failings in the current system. And unfortunately, it may even be more widespread than we initially anticipated. That's why we introduced this Assembly bill, again, Assembly Bill 1194, to help create a comprehensive approach with respect to conservatorships and reforms that will ensure that fiduciaries are supported, but also held to the highest standards. It's important that we close these loopholes and create accountability and transparency. As many of you may have seen, the testimony from Ms. Spears in courts earlier this summer was incredibly difficult to hear. And I think so many of us felt that there was confirmation about the devastating accounts of abuse, isolation, and even exploitation. She also accused her caretakers of drugging her as well. And these allegations was denied. And it's important that we respect that of individuals' own healthcare and reproductive options as well. So specifically, what would this bill do in this case? This Assembly bill would have helped ensure that there was choice of counsel, a major issue of course, in this case, in which the people in control of Ms. Spears' conservatorships also had been accused of paying themselves while defending those very fees in courts. So this Assembly bill will help stop this kind of self-dealing. Similarly, conservators would also not be able to use the estate to pay companies in which they have a financial interest. We're also giving the courts stronger oversight to investigate financial or physical abuse. And it's important that we help get the type of support we need. What you should know, though, is that this grassroots movement is so critical for all of us to help advocate for what we need in terms of reforms, and we're not done. So we need to help ensure that we're getting as much engagement and support to reform this effort as we move forward. So I join in partnership with all of you to help urge support for the reforms of conservatorships in California. And we know that this is a wide movement, not just in the state of California, but in the nation. So we look forward to the continued partnership in amplifying our voices. And it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Judy.
Thank you so much, Assembly Member. Really, really appreciate your leadership, and we will do everything we can to urge Governor Newsom to sign your bill, and are trying to get all of our folks to make the phone calls to make that happen. Please let us know what else we could do. We're going to move on to our next speaker. Megan Radford is a Free Britney activist. She, while she actually lives in Oklahoma, she's here in Los Angeles today to be part of the Free Britney rally tomorrow. Thank you so much, number one, for your leadership on this, and number two, for joining with our community, because it is so important that we spread the word among the general population.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I just wanted to talk a little bit about how Free Britney has evolved and, how we want to help support you all. So when many of us got into this movement, when this movement erupted in April of 2019, we really thought that it was an isolated issue, that Britney Spears was suffering this horrible injustice, but that it was this one-time thing. And no one believed us that she was even going through this. People called us conspiracy theorists for really up until February of this year, when Framing Britney Spears was released by the New York Times, is when the shift really started to happen. And then obviously Britney speaking in court for the first time on June 23rd, I think shocked the world. But as we started really turning from a fan campaign to a social justice movement, we started realizing that this affects far more people than Britney Spears. And it was mind-blowing. I mean, it was already mind-blowing to me that it could affect Britney Spears in such a substantial way. And then to find out that it's also affecting thousands of others across our country, and to start to hear those stories. It was more than a year ago at this point when we first started reaching out to, and I'm talking about the Free Britney LA team, when we first started reaching out to disability rights organizations and probate court reform advocates, trying to connect with people who were connected to this cause outside of the Free Britney movement. And we started hearing their stories, and they were truly heartbreaking. And just to think that this is happening in America is absolutely bone chilling, because it is incredibly unjust. And so that's when we really realized that Free Britney was much larger than Free Britney. We need to free everyone. And I think reforms like what Assemblymember Lowe has brought to the table are incredibly important. And it's one step in the process of correcting what has been wrong in the court, in the law so far, but then also, other changes that we can make to slow the number of people who are entering this system, to reduce those numbers, and then ultimately, hopefully, abolishing conservatorships altogether. Because I think, Judy, as you talked about with your autistic son, there are other ways to do this. There are other ways to support people who need support, and taking away their rights is not it. So really grateful to be here today. This is a cause and a campaign that I think many of us in the Free Britney movement started not knowing. We thought it would be easy. We thought as soon as this originally was exposed by a voicemail in April 2019, that at her next hearing in May 2019, that she'd be free. The fact that 2.5+ years later, we're still fighting just for her freedom is really eye-opening to how broken this system is. And we are committed to this cause beyond Britney, because I think once you've been given a platform like we have, we've really been able to help start conversations about this injustice, and we are grateful for that platform. But once you know these stories and the harrowing details of what so many people under conservatorship experience, there's no way you can know that information and stop. So I think many of us are dedicated to this cause for the long term, because it's an incredible injustice in our country, and we must fix it.
Thank you so much, Megan. That was amazing, and we are thrilled that you have joined with us. I mean, this is really a disability rights issue. This is not just about a celebrity. This is about people with mental health disabilities, with intellectual disabilities, developmental disabilities, seniors with memory issues, who are being taken advantage of and should really have their rights intact. Speaking of that, one of the real leaders in this country around that is our next speaker. Suzanne Bennett Francisco is the president of Exceptional Rights Advocacy. She's brought with her a friend of hers who she's been able to help successfully in a multi-year battle begin to exit her conservatorship. But I just also want to mention that Suzanne herself is a mom of 3 young adults with developmental disabilities and physical disabilities, and their rights have remained intact, and she is supporting them in making their own decisions. So thank you for joining us, Suzanne.
Thank you so much for having me. Marie is just one of so many people that with intellectual and developmental disabilities that are funneled automatically into conservatorship, where they have their rights stripped away. And people only are presented with one option, and that is conservatorship. They don't tend to learn about anything else, and I can tell you that is true as a parent myself. So I have a few minutes to talk to you about what happened in Marie's case. In 2018, a state council representative, State Council for Developmental Disabilities representative met Marie in her self-advocacy work and introduced her to me. She had filed for a court investigation in Ventura, where she was living and attending a program there. And at that time, I met her in January 2018. In February, the regional center assessed her in 2 hours. Shortly afterwards, we insisted she get a public defender, and the public defender did not speak to her until I insisted that he speak to her. And even when he did speak to her, he wasn't listening to her, and his actions clearly represented the conservatee and not the conservator, whereas in law, he is supposed to be representing the conservatee. And he was really there with reports that Marie wasn't allowed to touch or see. He did not submit the 143 recordings I had of conversations with Marie, naturally talking. And the judge did not hear her voice both in person nor on recording. Just before the hearing, the conservator sequestered Marie. He took away her phone and her computer. She was practicing supported decision-making, which I'll tell you briefly about at the end here, and wasn't able to talk to any supporters whatsoever. And so despite having family witnesses and professionals, the judge basically took what was called a general conservatorship, where all your rights are taken and given to the conservator. He stamped it limited. So it has had a label, limited, and still she was stripped of all of rights. She didn't get any rights back. So after that, that was very devastating for everyone, but we pursued on. I attended her meetings with the regional center called an individual program plan meeting, and encouraged her to ask for what she wanted. And her conservator did not want us there. At every single one of those meetings, he tried to prevent us from being there. And she asked for independent living services. She asked to exit her conservatorship. That didn't happen right away. She asked for a job, and she got awards at 2 jobs that she's worked. Since then, they offered her a full-time position. And then soon I got her a California attorney. Then we were able to hook up with Jonathan Martinez, who has won some groundbreaking cases in supported decision-making, namely a case similar to Jenny Hatch. And then we got to work with ACLU, who also joined the team. So Marie has been very lucky to have been a self-advocate from the beginning, which is how the state council representative contacted me. So since then, she basically was going to a hearing again in June, and she had stellar evidence and witnesses and the best attorneys in the country. And still, there's a small chance that she would not exit that conservatorship, and she would be stuck there with the best representation you can get and the best witnesses and assessments. And so the case was settled. And now she does not have her father as conservator. She has supported decision-making written into her settlement, and she is in an independent living program down in Ventura. And I just want to give you a brief definition of supported decision-making. Supported decision-making is what we do every day. We go to people, mentors, doctors, attorneys, people that we need when we need help and we need advice. We ask for advice. At no point do we ever know what the doctor knows. We know that we we choose this doctor, we trust this doctor, and he explains to us in plain English what we need to know to make a good decision. And we're seen as wise. So this supported decision-making gives people with disabilities the opportunity to seek out people that they choose and they trust, family members, professionals, to help them make decisions when they want that help. And Marie has a strong team of lots of family members, professionals, supporters, and she's lucky to be someone in that position, and it's very rare. So I know I don't have very much time to speak. Is there anything else you wanted me to share?
That was great, Suzanne. Let me now introduce Marie. You all just heard about her. So Marie Burgum, I wanted to ask you a couple of questions. We're so happy you joined us, and congratulations about starting the process to exit your conservatorship.
Yeah,
so why was it that you wanted to exit your conservatorship? What was happening, just real briefly, in your life that made you want to exit your conservatorship?
Well, I just needed some changes in my life, and I got tired of doing this, like being stuck.
Yeah.
I want to be stuck.
Yeah. And did other people believe in you? I mean, how did you feel about the people that believed in you?
Well, they gave me compliments and didn't want to give up. And I know I was not going to give up until I won.
I so appreciate your perseverance. What would you say to another person with a disability who might be getting conserved? What would you tell them about it?
Don't give up on yourself, and believe in yourself, and there's always a chance to get out of it.
That's great. And so let me just ask you the last question, which is, you have the supported decision-making team. How do they help you with your life every day?
They help me make decisions, a lot of hard decisions that, like, I'm not sure how to make, like medical decisions, like with contract, like with relationship friends and with relationships, and they don't make the decisions for me. They help me.
That's great. Well, Marie, congratulations. We're so thrilled. We're all joyful for you. And please stay on, because we're about to take questions from the media.
Okay.
So we had a final speaker, everyone. It was Linda Kincaid, who has really quite the compelling story to tell. Unfortunately, Linda's internet went out this morning and is unable to join us. However, if any people in the media want to contact her, we can absolutely get you to her. She has a very heart-wrenching and compelling story about her mother getting kidnapped by a caregiver and then the kidnapper becoming the conservator. So there are lots of these stories out there. I see other people who are with us here today who also have really heart-wrenching stories to tell. So, so at this time, I'd like to open it up to questions from the media only, not from I know we have some members of the public here. If you'd like to ask a question, you can either ask it in the chat, or you can use the raise hand feature by going down to reactions and raising your hand like I just did. So let us know if you have any questions, and we can go ahead and unmute you if you'd like to ask them verbally. Any questions from folks? All right. Well, I have a question for some folks if the media doesn't have some questions. So, so Megan, can you tell us what's going to happen tomorrow at the Free Brittany rally?
Yeah, we have, so Brittany has a conservatorship hearing. So in the hearing itself, there are two primary topics, although there are like 92 things on the docket because everything just keeps getting continued and continued, as I'm sure a lot of you are very familiar with. But the two primary things that I hope are addressed tomorrow are the removal of Jamie Spears, Brittany's dad, as conservator, and also the petition to terminate the conservatorship. So my hope for tomorrow is that Jamie will be removed. I don't have a ton of hope that the termination will happen, particularly because Jamie Spears was the one who filed for termination, which is a little bit odd since he's been the one insisting that she needs a conservatorship for 13 years. As far as the rally, we have a really, really cool event planned. We have partnered with Angelique Fawcett, who is on the Kasem Cares board and has been advocating for Nichelle Nichols, who is also trapped in an abusive guardianship. And we partnered with her, and we have a lineup of, we're spotlighting conservatorship abuse. We're giving a platform to people to tell their stories. We've got 5 or 6 incredible people that are going to be telling their personal stories about how conservatorship abuse has affected them. So that's the primary goal. Like I kind of said before, we've been given this platform, and we want to make sure it becomes really clear that this isn't just happening to Britney Spears. So tomorrow is kind of a special rally. It's called the Free Britney Unity Rally, and it's meant to really unite us all together for this cause to end conservatorship abuse. If you want to find out more, we have a website. It's freebritney.army/unity rally, and you can find out all the information about the speakers who will be there.
Thank you. That sounds amazing. And yeah, if we encourage folks to attend. I know I'll be there, and I'm bringing my unconserved son with me. So it'll be great, who loves Britney Spears.
That's awesome.
So it'll be great. It looks like Susan W has a question. Her hand is up.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So I understand for conservatorship, the judge needs to hear something needs to be submitted regarding the regarding if the person is incapacitated or some reason for the conservatorship. And I'm wondering if you can talk about the so-called proof of that. Who are the people who, like doctors, who are typically the parties who supply this information, and what kind of backgrounds do they have, and what is it the judge actually evaluates when regarding that information? Thank you.
That was a great question, and I think I'll bring in Suzanne to help me answer this. What I can tell you is that it's different for different kinds of people. So people with developmental disabilities like Marie or my son, there's actually a specific process in the state of California for someone with an intellectual or developmental disability, where there are these government funded agencies called regional centers who sign off on the conservatorship. One of the advocacy efforts that we're doing is to try to get regional centers to really look at supported decision-making before signing off on conservatorships. For people with mental health disabilities, it's often a psychiatrist who will sign off, or a doctor. For people with who are older, it's often a doctor as well. Suzanne, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I can say as a parent, and generally for most parents who have a child with a developmental disability, they hear about conservatorship from the beginning of time that they start school. So that's where the process starts. And the law that governs special education does not say anything about conservatorship, by the way. There is no obligation for them to do that. It just happens. It's not written into any law. So they begin to talk to you about conservatorship and send you to workshops and things like that often. They say that you cannot support your adult child if you don't conserve them. You can't help them with school past age 18, which is incorrect. And the handbook that we created at Disability Voices United gives people the tools to learn the very simple ways that you can avoid conservatorship and support your loved one when they become an adult. And so then the regional center is often invited to these meetings. Most people with developmental disabilities are a regional center client. There are 21 regional centers in the state of California, and they often come to the IEP meeting. And so there's been a discussion long before, and parents are usually only told about conservatorship, that one option by definition is not a choice, and it's the most restrictive option. So education and training is the most important thing, I would say, in this process. Education of people in school services, education of people in regional center services, community services generally. In healthcare, it's very important. Doctors are also pushing this, and in legal services. So we've had projects where we brought stakeholders together to really help educate professionals so that parents and other professionals and service providers get information about how they don't need to do this. But as Judy mentioned, regional centers have a legal role in the conservatorship process. They can go and assess them. In Marie's case, it was in a couple of hours, and I would have to say it wasn't a thorough assessment. It didn't represent her. And even then, that assessment that I didn't think was well done said that she should have some of her rights back. So the very first hearing, the regional center said she should have some of her rights back. And the judge said, no, we'll call it limited and she's going to have none. So that's the process. And it's based on IQ often. If I could just say one more thing, is in the case of Jenny Hatch, the assessor, she had an amazing attorney, and they got this assessor, of course, a psychologist, and they said, just follow her around and see how she makes decisions for a day or two. And before that, they thought, oh my goodness, she can't do this. And so they just followed her around and watched what she did in her life. And that's really what spoke to the judge and convinced people of what her abilities truly are. So we look to what they're not capable of most of the time instead of looking at their abilities.
Right. So we call this a school to conservatorship pipeline, that schools just start telling parents at young ages. And as I said in the introduction, let me be clear, this is all about money, and it's also about ableism. Ableism, in case you've never heard that term, is discrimination against people who are disabled. It's just like racism, it's just like sexism. It's about, it's a preference for people who seem to have no disability. And so you'll see doctors, you'll see school districts, you'll see psychiatrists who are just like, I'd much rather deal with the parents. I'd much rather deal with a conservator than deal with this person where I actually have to speak in plain language, where I may have to repeat myself, where it may take me more time. It's just so much easier to just ask the conservator. So we really need to radically change these. Okay, I see another Linda and NT, I think. You have a question?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good. I figured out what the unmute was. Sorry. 12 years ago, my son, who has autism, was basically kidnapped and put into a group home without my knowledge or permission by my ex-husband. And then he was conserved. My daughter and I didn't have any notice of the hearing. And for 15 years, I've been fighting just for visitation. My question to you is, what can I do now? Because now my son, because of all the undue influence, doesn't want to see me anymore.
Yeah, I mean, this is why we really need to substantially change the conservatorship system so that these kinds of abuses can't happen. You know, we've seen just too many stories that are like this. We've seen stories of parents who are maybe have caused problems with the systems that support their kid, maybe fought that the systems, and the system coming in and taking conservatorship over that young adult away from the parents. I mean, we've seen we've seen the court forcing family members to pay ridiculous amounts of money per month to hire this total stranger as a conservator. And all their panels of attorneys, even if that parent opposes this stranger conservator, the court is all powerful. Once a conservatorship is established,
yeah.
You have to go
ahead. Can you?
Okay. So, I think that it's really important for us to look at a complete overhaul of the system. I did see someone asking in the chat something to Assemblymember Lowe, who unfortunately needed to go off to another meeting, asking why his bill focuses just on lawyer choice versus an overhaul. There is a provision in his bill that specifically says there should be sort of a review and a report written about how the conservatorship system is working. It is really, really hard to create reform. We have been trying to get little tiny bits of reform, and guess who opposes it? It's all those probate lawyers and those probate judges who make a lot of money and have a lot of power. And so this is really a sort of David and Goliath thing here, where we are people with disabilities and their family members who are fighting against these giant systems that are filled with money. And unless we understand that this is about money, whether it's Britney Spears' dad making a ton of money off of his daughter and having control of her so that she continues to make more money, or something like the probate lawyers who are making a lot of money, or the professional conservators, some of whom make $15,000 to $20,000 a month to be the conservator. And it's not a full-time job, believe me. These are the things that we see happening on a regular basis in the community. I see another question in the chat. Given that conservatorships are handled at the state level, actually it's at the county level, what kind of reforms do you think are possible at the national level? What do you hope to come out of the Senate Judiciary Committee's inquiry? Great question. So actually, conservatorships are handled at the county level. So Britney Spears' conservatorship was provided by the LA County Probate Court, which is where the Free Britney rally will be happening in front of the Stanley Moss Courthouse tomorrow. Actually, I just want to mention that the LA County Probate Court is one of the most corrupt in the state. I know many people who work in other parts of the state who tell me about the incredible incestuous relationship that everybody has who works in the LA County Probate Court. I went with a friend to one of her hearings in the LA County Probate Court, and she had a lawyer representing her to try to get the professional conservatorship away from her brother. And this lawyer was supposed to be representing her, and he's backslapping and waving and hanging out with all the lawyers who are on the other side. They golf together, they vacation together. This is a very incestuous and connected community that really needs to be broken apart and exposed. And I mentioned there's complete lack of transparency. If you listen to the Britney Spears hearing tomorrow, you'll hear, like, what are they talking about? Why is this not being exposed? Because it's a very, very secretive process. So what do we hope will come out of the Senate hearing today? Well, I don't think there's necessarily a bill, although we don't know. It's very, very possible that Senator Blumenthal or Senator Cruz will be introducing a bill in the next year. But we do know that there can be a national response to this. There can be a federal law that puts supported decision-making into law so that it's available to everyone in every state. Right now, supported decision-making is available in a bunch of states around the country, not here in California. But it's available in Texas and Alaska and in places that are kind of unusual. And we know that if it's put into federal law, it will be available all over the country. Some of the stories you're going to hear at the hearing today are really there's a whole bunch of Californians who are testifying at the hearing today who are really going to talk about the same kinds of cases that we're talking about. We need radical change and overhaul.
I can say that there's a thought also that supported decision-making might be included under Medicaid and HCBS. Mm-hmm. And even where there are grants that are federal grants for communities of practice throughout the country, they don't have funding, and often this kind of work doesn't commonly have funding. So there are a lot of really passionate people doing this work. And I did put in the chat that we have a set of principles that we created, a set of general principles, and also specifically to each the education, community, healthcare, and legal services areas with 5 to 7 suggestions of how to change policy and the system. Is there something else you want to say about that?
No, there was a question, another question in the chat I was going to, because we want to end by 10:45. Somebody was asking about talking points to help people reach out to Governor Newsom. We will get those talking points out to folks, because we are really encouraging everyone to call and try to get Assembly Bill 1194 signed. Remember that all these bills do have opposition. They're usually opposition by the people who make money in the system. And we're really hoping that that at least this small effort we can move forward on, and it will help grow a more significant overhaul, which I know Assemblymember Lowe and Senator Allen and Senator Laird are also very interested in. So seeing that there are no more questions, we're going to wrap up. We hope to see everybody at the Free Britney rally tomorrow. It begins at 1:30 p.m. in front of the Stanley Mosque Courthouse in downtown LA. Bring your Free Britney signs, or ours is going to be saying "Free Everyone." And if you have any questions, please feel free to follow up. If you got the press release, our contact information, Marcy, our media person, and my contact information is in there, and we'll try to get you as much information as we can. Thank you everyone for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.